So I'm with Joel Runyon. Joel is the founder of Impossible HQ, which I'll let him define all the different things. I'll give you my interpretation. He's got swag. He does impossible, crazy events every. What was your last challenge, man?
I did this thing called the longest day and the longest night. It was the longest day of the year. You ran around a track as many times as you can.
Just one track, like
yeah,
you went to high school and just banged it out.
Yeah, I mean, it was long. It was ended up doing like 50 miles or something close to that, but it's not like an ultra marathon where you get to see stuff. It's just like you're going around the same track a million times. So it's like a mental game on top of
I
everything.
love it. So. I love it. You got a new sleep formula that just came out, which I think is supposed to arrive. Which thank you. I noticed I got a Shopify receipt, but I haven't gotten it yet. So I haven't slept with it yet.
Okay.
My dogs have been keeping me up. I told my wife, I'm like, Joel's sleep formula, we're giving it to the dogs. We're giving it to me. we're going to have the best sleep ever. I can't wait to talk about that. And you have a lawsuit going on. You're being sued by a multi-trillion-dollar entity, which I can't wait to talk about if you're open to it. Okay. And you've just done a lot of cool, crazy stuff. So we got a lot of stuff to catch up on. Noel is running down and grabbed me another coffee because I said this might go a while because Joel's got a lot of stories, and we're just about to get started. Last thing I want to tell everybody is so I met Joel at Jesse Itzler's Hell on the Hill. Well, was it the first year or it was the second year? But it was the first year I think I went, and we shared a room together. Oh no, so it was my second year being there because the first year he had me sleep in a motel, which that's usually his way of saying I'm not sure if we're friends yet. So I'm gonna put you down the block. I'm just kind of teasing because if you're invited to that, Jesse's the best. But then the next year we spent the
we had bunk beds.
Shared a room. We had bunk beds. Yeah. That's right. And nothing crazy going on in the room, but it was fun. And I think at the time you had just gotten done doing like Antarctica or something like that.
Yeah, that was maybe 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. I just finished the 777, so that was an ultra marathon project where I ran an ultra marathon on every continent and raised money for schools. So we can talk about that too. But yeah, that was right after that, and so I showed up to Hell on the Hill, I think the first time, and I was it's like I'd done all these other events, but I was kind of beat up and broken down quite a bit from all the races. And then also it was just funny because like the first time I went to Hell on the Hill, I asked Jesse, I was like, hey, like, are there other hills that you can prepare for, like train on, whatever? He's like, there are no comparables. The hill has its own anger. He said that a long time ago, and I'm like, I didn't understand. And then I did the race, and then I was like, oh, I understand. So, yeah, that's been a while. It's like, it's been 4 years or something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's awesome. The only thing I would say is like, I've done 3 of Jesse's 29029 events.
Yeah.
And there's parts of some of those mountains. I don't know if you've done any of them, but like where the mountains are like, it's like Hell on the Hill, but it just doesn't stop for like 6 blocks.
Yeah,
and you're like, and then you do that for, so many hours, you're just like, and that's not how every mountain is, but there's usually parts in it that the steepness gets pretty freaking crazy. Where your Achilles tendon feels like it's about to pop off. It's pretty brutal, but if you train well, you'll be fine. But Hell on the Hill, just so everyone understands our context, is like it's Jesse and Sarah Blakely's backyard in their house in Connecticut. It dips into like a awesome lake at the bottom of it, and it's like, is it 80 yards? Is it 80 something yards?
Yeah, I think it's like 80. It's just shy of like a football field, and then it's 100 times, so it comes out to like
it's like a 33 to 35 degree angle, correct? Which if everybody, I want you to try this out, is like just find any kind of hill or angle and like do that, but then do it for 100 yards and then do that for 3.5 hours straight and just and that's what you're doing. That's all you're doing.
And then the last part, like the last part of the hill is even steeper. Like most of the grade is like, okay, it's manageable or whatever, but tough. And then the last part is like people are on all fours crawling
That's
up.
awesome.
Like it's a whole thing.
Yeah. And you have like your weekend warriors, like I consider myself to be. And then you have like the like Kevin and Mark Nealon who are like sprinting down as fast as they can, like marching up. And by the way, just so everyone understands, you cannot run up this hill. You can run up it maybe once, and then your heart's through your throat. And it's always fun every year, like when a new person shows up and they're like, I'm going to win it this year. I'm going to dominate. And unless they're like Goggins or Mark Nealon or Kevin, and there's been
did really well.
Tim's an example of a guy that like was never a good runner. And then all of a sudden, like 5 years down the road, he's like running 100-mile races. Did he do his final like 3 times? And it's been interesting to see him transform into buying into like the ultra distance stuff.
Yeah.
He's a total badass. I think he's been one of Jesse's key training partners and crewmen on a lot of these events. Tim's one of my favorite guys too. He's just humble and badass at every level.
I hung out with him the first time. We've kept in touch quite a bit. And I remember the first time he showed up, he was just like, he was jacked. He was huge. Like just massive. And like he's still jacked now, but he's like running jacked. And you're like, that's a dangerous combo.
Yeah. What's the name of the 100-miler that
Leadville?
He has? What's that? Yes. Say it again. Yeah, Leadville.
Leadville out in Colorado.
I don't know if did he finish the 3rd time or is he planning on doing it this year?
No, I think he finished the 3rd one. So yeah. I went out 1 year to train with him and just do like Hope Pass. And he was just like, I think he did it 2 times and he got pulled off based on like time qualification. Yeah. It was like the back half of like the middle part of it is like you just go up Hope Pass and then down Hope Pass and you got to turn around and you come back up and down around like mile 50 to 60. And he just like brutalizes people.
Yeah.
And so I think this last time he did finish it. So that was like, he'd been working on that for a couple of years.
Yeah, which tells you the quality of his character. It's pretty awesome. Well, dude, let's kind of talk a little bit about, let's go in sequence of how I've known you, I guess, is like you've done when I first met you, you just finished you were doing the 7x7, which is now, is it 7 ultra marathons on 7 different continents? Is that how it operates?
Yeah. So something that kind of made up. I did an ultra marathon at one point, like 4 or 5 years prior to that challenge. And I raised a bunch of money and we built a school with a nonprofit. And I was like, that was pretty cool. That was like really impactful. We got to go to Guatemala, actually see the impact. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And the brand is impossible. So I was like, I'd like to do that, but the tagline's push your limits. So it's like, okay, I'd like to do that again, but I need to do that in a bigger, better way. So then I started looking at other races. I saw an Antarctica race. I saw some other stuff. And then I was just going to do one. And then I started seeing all these other races kind of piled together. And I was like, what if I just did 7? And then we did every continent. Everybody says they want to get to every continent. I was like, let's just figure out how to do it. And then instead of doing 1 school, let's do 7. So that's where 777 came from. And like since that, there's been actually a couple other 777 marathon. But
you made the first time. So the first time you did it, you made that up?
Yeah, no, yeah, that was like a thing that I came up with, and then.
Oh man, yeah, because I thought I've heard of that.
Well, now it's a thing.
Now it's
like a thing, but people will do it. They'll do 777, and it's marathons, and they'll do it in 7 days. So that's what the third 7 is for most people, where they're like, it's actually a tour operator, Richard Donovan, who runs probably the best Antarctica race operation. But I told him about this back in like 2014, and then like I did my first race, got injured, was signed up to do this Antarctica one, and had to push it back like a year and a half because I was injured, and then I had a different lawsuit, other thing that happened. And by the time I was ready to do Antarctica again, he was launching this like world marathon challenge, which is his version of 777. So I don't know, I don't know if it's parallel construction or something like that, but That's become hugely popular. And I talked to a couple people the other day that are thinking about signing up for it. So um, the time I went down to Antarctica was the last time he ever did the ultra marathon down there, and he's just kind of moved to this world marathon challenge and then the Antarctica marathon because those are such popular distances for people to run.
Yeah. So I want to specifically let's talk about your Antarctica experience, right? So you go up to, you fly. So in ultra marathon now, so what is the actual definition of an ultra marathon? Is it 35 miles?
No, ultra marathon is like, it's not really that well regulated. So an ultra marathon is technically anything farther than a marathon. So if you run a marathon and then you run to like the 7-Eleven, that's technically an ultra marathon.
Yeah.
The distances tend to fall into like a 50K, which is like 31 miles. It's like the shortest ultra you'll typically see. A 50K, a 50 miler, 100K, a 100 miler, and then everything in between and beyond. So, so 50K is 30 miles, 100K is 60 miles ish.
And then you got a 100 miler, and then you got the next level, which goes beyond that, which is pretty amazing as well. So you go up there to Antarctica, and how many were with you to run this? And were you doing a 50K? Were you doing 30 miles?
This was 100K.
Holy cow.
I was out there for a while.
Holy cow.
So it's a loop. We can get into a lot of stuff there. Like this spawned like an Antarctica, like hidden base government conspiracy type thing on Reddit. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that popped out of this, but this is basically a loop that you run, and it's a 10K loop. And you run it 10 times. And
which doesn't, let me just say this, like that doesn't sound that hard. Like, I mean, it does, but like with the way you just described it, it's like, okay, so I'm going to just do 10K. Okay. I mean, I could train for that. But the other dynamics that you shared with me in private, I was like, oh my God, I could see how this is just awful in so many ways. Like, because even like a 1 mile loop 100 times, you're like, I could do that, right?
Yeah.
But once you're like, so you got the 10K, 6 miles. How many participants?
So there were only 10 people that did the 100K. So there was there's one plane that flew down there, and half the people. 10 people were there to do the ultra marathon, and like 30 people that were there to do the marathon. So we fly in. We're supposed to fly in. We fly in like a Friday. We leave super early, and we're supposed to run the race on Saturday morning. So you get in, have the night to relax, whatever. Antarctica weather is super all over the place, and so we get in the morning on early afternoon on Friday, and they're like, change of plans. We're going out. You're going to start running tonight, like 9 p.m. is like the start time. And so you go back to the tent, try to take a nap or whatever, and then we get up. And the weirdest part about this is like, okay, we started at 9 p.m. You're already a little bit low on sleep, but then you just start running, and it's summertime in Antarctica, which means the sun doesn't go down. So you're out there for the first 12 hours. From 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. And the other racers are kind of like, they'll do one loop on the track just to like see what's going on. All the marathon people just like, hey, what's going on with the race? And then they go back to their tents. They go to bed. They get breakfast. They come back out, and they're like, yeah, yesterday was cool. And you're like, I didn't get it yesterday. I've been out here the whole time. It's looked like this for 12 hours or whatever. So, there's a bunch of things about Antarctica that makes it tough. One, it's like we had a like kind of a matted down track, but you're running on like packed snow. So if you've ever tried to do that, your feet will go through the snow quite often.
Yeah.
So instead of having like a nice easy cadence or even something like that's technical on a mountain, every time your foot goes through like snow, you're dropping 12 inches or whatever, and it just gives you a terrible cadence. So at some points, it's hard to run. It's like you're stomping through snow. And then other parts where it's better packed, you can get back into a running.
Well, and there's only 10 people, so it's not like you're with 6 mile distance. It's not like you're going up and down a hill like where you're sledding, where all of a sudden it's now you're pretty much on ground, and now you can just bang it out. And
So we had that. There's no bathrooms on the course. Like, you're not allowed to like normal ultra marathon. If you have to go to the bathroom, just go out there. Like, Antarctica has international treaty rules. That means like you have to bring anything that you bring onto the continent off the continent. So,
oh my gosh.
So you can't, like if you have to go pee, like whatever, like you have to like make it to one of the bases to like go back to the bathroom. And so there's that issue. There's not like, like food and trash and all that stuff. And then, it's -25 or, whatever the temperature was.
If my kids were listening to this right now, they'd be like, okay, that wouldn't work for my dad when he's got to pee. Everything moves in the mountains to make sure dad can make it to the rest area to pee.
So this is the thing. So it was so cold that I found that I was having to pee all the time, even though I didn't have to pee. Like, it was just like all your organs are basically just like, just like warming up, trying to stay warm. And, that's the other thing is regulating temperature is you want to get warm, but you don't want to be too warm, because if you're too warm, you start sweating. And then the thing that they would repeat was, if you sweat, you die, because what happens is you'll get wet. And then as soon as you get wet, then it just is game over and it's really bad. So you want to like find this spot where you're warm, but you're not
That's
like
so weird. That's so, that's tough. And another thing you mentioned to me that always stuck with me was like let's say me and you were going to do this together, right? And if you and I are off cadence of running, just even if it's like 0.2 miles per hour, within the first mile, we're now a block apart. Within the second mile, I don't even see you anymore, correct? Like, so with 10 people, you're probably flying in and everyone's looking at each other like, this can be awesome. We're going to do this. We're the best. Yeah, we're a group. And whether I'm just like that would be my like perception. Like, yeah, man, this is awesome. We're, everyone here is going to finish. And then within like 2 blocks, you're like all already like an accordion spreading out. It's not like a team that you're going in there to like do the whole Indian run, like where we're staying together, we're in a block for each other. So how quickly were you alone? And then how often were you alone on the whole thing?
So I would say by lap 2, things started to really spread out. Because lap 1, everybody's kind of like, you're even still seeing people and like, okay, like I'll adjust my running style. It's only 6 miles the first lap. So you're like, okay, like you can kind of keep pace with whatever you want. And
everything's still pretty light. Everything's still light. Like there's no hard chargers ready to go out, and everyone's kind of like, okay, we're at a certain pace, and
And there was, who was one of the so not Ryan Hall. There was a couple. Ryan Hall and Mike Wardian did run the marathon, but that was a different one. But there's a couple good racers where you're like, okay, that guy's he's winning, right? Like he's gonna do this. Most people were like, okay, chilling for a second. After about 2 laps, that's when it just starts pacing everything out. And that's when it just started getting like, you're out here by yourself. And there's a couple people that were running, out of the 100K, I think there were maybe 2 or 3 groups, or there are 10 people, and there may be 2 or 3 groups of 2 that were trying to run together. And so they like, there's a British crew, and then there was this there's like a blind runner that was basically just being led the whole time. And it was like,
wow,
so they were running together. So you had a couple different like groups that like kind of partitioned out, but then as everybody else is kind of on their own. And so it would be these things where you're just like, it's one thing to be in Antarctica. It's another thing to be like spread out on a race course. It's another thing to be like alone in Antarctica at like 2 a.m. when it's bright out, but there's nobody around. And the other thing that happens is everything's white. And so you have really poor depth perception over time. Like everything just done, it's like that could be a mile, and then it's really 20 miles wet. Like you just don't know what's going on. So there was a couple times where I stopped in the middle of the race to get some water at like the halfway point. And I looked around, and there's no wildlife. There's no trees. There's nothing like that. So you're basically, you're hearing your own thoughts and like your breath and nothing else. Like it's dead silent. You don't hear other runners. You don't hear the camp. You don't hear anything. And that was bizarre. That was like a weirdly still, like eerily still situation. So that was the other thing. It's like you're spending a lot of time out there on your own, alone, and you just have to like come up with something to think about or talk about, or like, mantras to go through. And it's its own
Were there any moments any moments you were like, this is just kind of ridiculous, I'm gonna bounce out? Or
no, not with Antarctica, because Antarctica was just like, I'm in Antarctica. Like, you're not gonna get back here anytime soon. So like, you're here, you're doing the race. And there was a couple points, like my back locked up on like 15 miles to go, but I was just like, you're gonna get through this. Like, you're doing it. The funny thing about the race, the series of races that I did, was I did Antarctica, and then like 2 weeks later I did this like 50K. So I did 100K in Antarctica, and then 2 weeks later I did like a 50K in Thailand. And I was like, 50K, I just did 100 in Antarctica. 50K is no problem. And the 50K put me on my butt.
wow.
It made me want to. I thought that was the one race that made me think about quitting, because it was basically just out and backs, out and backs, out and backs, up and down hills. So they're like these jungle hills that are just going up and down, and you're seeing racers go out and come back, and it's a demoralizing course. And it was shorter, and so everybody's like, "Oh, 50K, it's fine," and that's what I thought. And it just is. I find terrain and temperatures are sometimes a lot more revealing of the actual like race conditions than.
How did your feet hold up in Thailand? Like, how were blisters? Anything?
Yeah, so my feet were fine. I did basically 4 of those races within 8 weeks. So I did an all-night race in Australia, and I did Antarctica, I did Thailand, and then I did a Finland race. And the Finland race was like through the Arctic in the winter, in February. And by the end of that, like I had to go get my foot x-rayed and like checked out, because it had kind of swollen up into like this big thing. And I was like, oh no, I broke my foot, whatever. And I go in, and they're just like, you run too much. Like, that's like basically what they told me. And like, finish English or whatever. And so I was just like, okay, well, I'm just going to take a little bit. So I took like a month off, and then I did the last one in South Africa. But no, like, I had one big injury. I had one peroneal tendon tear in Patagonia. That was my first race. I finished the rest of the races, but then I had to finish the rest of that race, and then had to put off the remainder of the races for like a year. But after that, I did a lot more strength training. I wasn't just focused on like running distances. I was trying to be more of a complete athlete.
Yeah. And you're doing a lot of CrossFit now, correct? And I mean, your workouts are pretty insane now.
The stuff I'm doing now is more like general strength and conditioning with like work capacities thrown in. So it's, if you walk to the gym, you think it's probably a CrossFit gym, but it's got like periodized training. So it's a little bit more strategic, I believe, than like a general like CrossFit training.
Yeah. Because you're hitting every zone, which I don't want to go too in depth on that, because it's totally outside my level of expertise, and I may just be sounding like I'm making stuff up, which I probably am. So with your Impossible brand, like, and I'm wearing your shirt, got the shirt. You started, goes back, how long ago did you start Impossible, like the brand? Like,
so I started Impossible in 2010. This is like a long time ago. So Impossible started off as a blog for me, because I graduated college, and I'd done all the things. I basically followed the life script you get, right? Like, go to college, get good grades, play sports, learn another language, graduate, and then like you get a job, and like you're just supposed to get a job, and that's what happens. I did all that, and then that was in the middle of like, I graduated in 2009, in the middle of the Great Recession, and there were no jobs. And so I applied to a bunch of places that I wanted to, and they're like, they're deferring everybody like a year even at that point. And so then I applied to a bunch of B-level jobs, and I was like, I'll take it, and didn't get responses. Then I started applying to like Target and like Starbucks, and like just let me make coffee. I just want to do something, get out of my parents' house. And they weren't hiring. So I got like turned down by like Starbucks, and I'm sitting in my parents' basement feeling really bad about myself. And I had a list of all these things. I'm this young kid. I have an aspirational list of all these things I want to do, but they all really felt like impossible because, I couldn't even get a basic job. And I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to start a business. I want to do all these things, but I was like, you can't even get a job at Starbucks, bro. Like, what are you trying to do? And so I felt bad for myself for a long time. But I was making this list of things I wanted to do. And then after a while, I watched, binged all the stuff that was on Netflix at the time. And it wasn't that, not as much stuff as there was now. And I just realized, I started looking at my list again. And when I looked at my list, there's a bunch of stuff on it that I was no capabilities to do at that point in time, like run a business, travel the world, whatever. I had no money, no skills. But one of the things on the list was run a triathlon. And I didn't know anything about triathlons. I've never seen anybody do a triathlon. I didn't know what 3 sports were in a triathlon, but I was like, I'm going to go do it. So I trained for it. And like 8 weeks later, I did my first one. And I had a very specific memory that when I finished it, I was like, you just spent so much time telling yourself that this was impossible. You just did it. So if that's true, what other things
else
you think you can do? And so that's kind of where that started off. So it started off as a blog of me being like, can I go do interesting things with my life and like push myself and kind of document some of these physical challenges? And then it's evolved over the years. So it's basically evolved from, my personal documenting my life from like, former UPS driver to, trying out, some of these challenging events to building up programs on how like, hey, here's how I did it. Here's how you can do it. And from a training protocol standpoint. So we have a whole library of fitness programs at Impossible Fitness that help people achieve different various impossible goals they have.
Yeah.
And now we have a bunch of custom formulations that we're launching from a supplement standpoint to help people kind of achieve peak performance in a few key areas. And so the overall kind of mission of the brand is inspire people to do something impossible, like train them up so they actually have the capabilities to go out and do some of these things, fuel them while they're doing it. And then, like document, share those stories, and then inspire more people and keep that cycle going. So,
well, I think let me jump in here for a second. Like, I think what's so cool about it is like you gave yourself an experience. Like you wrote down like the list of like, wouldn't it be great if I did all these cool things that, like I currently think are impossible to do, or just, everything's just kind of, what would I like to do? And then you just started, you gave yourself a micro experience, which was the triathlon. And this is very important for everybody. Is like, when can I start doing all these things? I don't know. I mean, like, go start. And like, once the experience happens, something magical seems to happen, I think, for all of us. Like friction is a dangerous thing. Being stagnant is a dangerous thing. That a small little experience can just revolutionize and totally radically shift your whole direction in life, because that small little bit of confidence means you don't need permission from anybody else to do it. There's learnable. I just had Craig Ballantyne on the show as well, and he talked about going from being an introvert to somebody who can be really good on camera. And he was like, it's a learnable skill. He's like, I studied people that were good on camera. And it's like triathlons. Like I've done one triathlon in my life. I sucked at swimming. I still frankly suck, because it was 20 years ago and I haven't stayed up with the swimming side. But I already know like that you can go learn how to swim and in a matter of weeks be a 10 times better swimmer than you currently are, if that's what you want to do. What do? Go get a mentor, go get in a class, go do it, watch some videos. That's amazing, man. So then did that kind of just propel you off into this journey?
Yeah. So what's interesting about it is like, there's like I tried a bunch of things at Impossible. It wasn't like a fully like self-sustaining business, from the get-go. Like it was like I was trying stuff, but it wasn't like I was like, oh, I just ran a triathlon and now I'm like a business person. Like I still had a gap on the skills there. So, but what happened was it kind of jump-started me. That micro experience you mentioned is like, it gave me that attitude to be like, what else can I go do? And so I was like, I have to solve this job thing, because I'm sitting in my parents' basement. This is not great. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I like the internet and I like marketing. So maybe I'll do internet marketing. And I went down to this company um in Carmel, Indiana, and they took me on as like an intern, and they're basically paying me like a like a phone stipend, and like we're supposed to sell like expensive websites to restaurants who didn't have money.
Yeah.
It's a terrible product spot,
Yeah.
but like it got me in the door, and I was like, okay, what's going on here? And I was looking at this, and they basically had two products. They were selling like expensive websites to restaurants who made no money, and they also had these like retainer projects to multi-million-dollar companies that like were great clients and also didn't care that the number seemed like a really high number to me at the time. And so I was just like, I was looking at this, and I was like, it seems like we should just do like less of this thing that like I'm trying to do and I'm failing at. It's just a bad product market fit. And this other thing that like we tweak and it's like we could double the revenue from this one person. They're not even going to blink. And so I just used that opportunity. Like I got paid nothing. I slept on my sister's couch for like 6 months in Carmel, Indiana. Really exciting place to be as a 22-year-old, kid or whatever. And just use that experience to like read everything from like Perry Marshall to like anything that I could get my hands on online, and like snuck my way into a couple Perry events, and he's still a good friend now. But did a whole bunch of stuff just to like soak up the knowledge, and then started making a couple tweaks. And it was funny because they're basically paying me nothing for 6 months. But when it came time for me to be like, hey, can I get like a job that like you pay me for? Like they didn't have a position to hire me for, but they couldn't afford for me to leave because I brought so much value at that point. And they like, and there was just a mismatch of like, we can't let Joel go. And so I ended up working my way up to like a marketing director position there, worked on a few side hustles, still had Impossible going, started other stuff online, just to kind of like throw things at the wall, see if it stuck. And then that's kind of how I got my wheels spun up. And then, I worked at a normal job for a couple of years, and then, eventually quit and like focused on all of my projects full time. So it was, it's that spark from the triathlons though, that made me think like, what have you been waiting for? Like, why are you just like waiting for someone else to pick you? Like just go.
Well, I think that's a great question if we can all ask, even on stuff that as we evolve and get better at certain things of breaking through certain belief systems, there's always another level. Like I was listening to these guys. I'm learning golf right now. I'm taking lessons, trying to learn the game. Obviously for people who listen to me, they already know, like my son's really competitive. He picked the sport up in 8th grade. He's only a sophomore now, qualified for state. Now he's doing tournaments, and I'm trying to help compress timeframes for him. Like how do we speed up this journey and take my 20-something years of coaching competitive volleyball and utilize some of this stuff to but I got to learn the sport. And anyhow, long story short, why am I sharing that? There's a really cool podcast I just started listening to yesterday. That was it's called, let's see here. Sorry, it's not the Jocko cast. I met Jocko briefly in a locker room, and when I was in
I saw that. That was a dope photo. Yeah,
it was really cool. He was great. He was great to talk to, and but anyhow, this podcast is called, like, I think it's like Going for Scratch or something. It's like these two guys who 5 years ago decided to start a podcast of their journey. Check this out, of their journey of becoming scratch golfers.
Okay.
And they're still not. They're 4.5 years. They're on season 5, and they're almost at scratch golf. But I'm like, how freaking, because right now I'm trying to redesign my life to be on the golf course more with my son Michael without feeling guilty like I'm supposed to be doing other stuff.
Yeah.
And it's working because I've shifted my business, and I can tell, like, the selling leads and helping people, connecting lead partners with lead sellers. I could do from my phone. It's something that once I set up the partnerships, it runs.
Yep.
So it's kind of a different mode, where the past 15 years of my life, it's always been based around building funnels. Like, how do we create a sales funnel that sells products? Well, that means you got to be behind the computer screen a certain number of hours a day.
Yep.
And so I'm shifting that. So just kind of telling the world that I'm intentionally shifting it. But when I listen to these guys, I was like, man, you guys are like, they just said, screw it. We're going to go become scratch golfers and we're going to do it together and we're going to document 5 years of it. So now they got sponsors on their podcast.
Yeah.
They probably get invited to functions. They're doing stuff. And I was like, look at these guys, brass balls right there. Brass balls, just saying, we're going to go do this. And, and give zero F's what people might judge him on. Maybe the dude had, and I'm making this all up, but like in the big picture, let's pretend they were both high paid attorneys and they said, fuck it. We're just going to give it up. We're just going to go do what we want to do. And they're going to figure out a new life, and so like you are creating what you want, what kind of gets your gadgets going and inspires you. And on the side effect is everything that you're doing for yourself, the people that start following you and start becoming customers of you, you're selling to yourself, which, is the most powerful way to actually grow a business if you can make it work,
So one of the things that actually like made the shift for me, back when I was in my parents' basement, was I read this book by Donald Miller. If you know Donald Miller, it's called A Million Miles in a Thousand Years. And basically, he wrote this book. It was a bestseller. Someone wanted to turn it into a movie, and he had to start like editing this book like for the movie. But it's weird because his book was a memoir, so it's like he's like kind of editing stories about his life to make it better for a movie.
Yeah.
But what he learned was like, hey, there's all these things that you have to do in a story to make it a good movie. And then basically the lesson he takes away from it is like, but we're all living a story right now, whether you want to or not. So like the question is, are you living a story worth watching? And so that was one of the questions I was living in my parents' basement. And I was like, if people made a movie about my life, it'd be like, it'd be a movie about a guy sitting on his couch watching movies. And that's like what that is,
Yeah.
And so there's all these things I want to do. And it's just like, why not try for them? And this is actually something I've been rediscovering lately because, I think I did 777, turned 30, whatever. And you kind of get to this mode, where you're like, hey, I'm good at these things. I know how to do this. I knew how to do that. But it was still kind of like on the same cruising thing. So this whole last year, I've just been trying a whole bunch of new stuff that like, I don't know if I'm going to be good at. I don't know if I'm like, I have to like be okay with looking stupid again and learning from scratch. But going back to this gym and basically building my body back up from, ground zero, learning to do stuff like wake surf and wakeboard and kiteboard, trying stand-up comedy, like a whole bunch of different things. That, I just turned 35. So I was like, oh, like 35, I should know what I'm good at. And I do. Like I have, my strengths, my weaknesses, but then it's like, you don't have to start like, you don't have to stop scratching new itches.
I mean, I'm 46 and I feel like I'm just trying to figure out what my next, like, what do I like now? I'm really, really good at coaching volleyball. I've coached volleyball for 25 years. I feel like I could be in the top few percentage points of coaches. And like, there's parts of me like, oh, I should be doing that more. But then here I am spending 8 hours with my son, game planning for his golf tournament, doing all these things, having deep conversations with my nephew, who's the starting shortstop at University of Kentucky, who's potentially going to get drafted this year. Then I'm coming back and working with my 10-year-old on how to do this. I'm like, wait, I'm doing exactly what I used to love doing. It's just the context in the environment shifted, and I have to learn these new things. Our friend Jesse Itzler, I mean, if any of our friends follow him on Instagram and BYL, I mean, he's making up new stuff every month. Like he's always doing something new and cool and adventurous. Like there's a lot of inspiration from that. So then so did you start with swag as far as productizing Impossible? And everybody can find by the way, just your website's ImpossibleHQ.
Yeah, Impossible HQ. So I got a couple things. ImpossibleHQ.com is like the headquarters. Impossible Fitness is like the fitness training programs and tutorials. And then Impossible.co is where all the e-com brand is basically it was off Impossible HQ, but it's just easier to isolate it on impossible.co. So it first started off, like the business side started off by like me talking about, hey guys, I didn't think I could do a triathlon. Like the first product I ever launched was like a triathlon product. Like I never thought I could do a triathlon. Here's like exactly how I trained. Here's what I did. Here's how I learned how to do it. And did like, brought in like triathlon coaches to like, teach them stuff. Problem is, triathlon's like relatively niche sport. So like that product was like, it was like really good exercise for me to like practice launching something. And then it was just like, the market on it was pretty small, but did a fun.
That's okay. My first product was to volleyball athletes, bro.
Yeah.
Like mental toughness for volleyball kids, like athletes. And I was like, okay. And then some guy gave me great feedback. He's like, well, the volleyball market's really small and kids don't have any money. Like parents buy that. And then coaches, well, so then I started selling to coaches. And I was like, well, coaches don't really have any money either.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like, I was like, all right, well, and then I jumped into a totally different market, which this isn't about me right now, but it's like, I wanted to sell to business owners. And I took the same skills I learned by starting that first product, which I think was the point we're going to, is like, I took the skills from learning the first product and all the fundamentals and moved it over to a better market,
So I did a bunch of that stuff. Did a couple more fitness products that were more either aesthetics focused or like strength focused. And that was like, we have different training protocols now, from everything from like a 5K to an ultra marathon. And I have this thing that basically evolved out of the list I was talking about at the beginning, which is called the impossible list. Kind of a list of things that I want to keep doing to push my own limits. And a lot of them are fitness goals. And a lot of people, we've had tens of thousands of people make their own impossible list over the years.
I love it.
And typically those match up to specific fitness goals. Someone wants to run a marathon, someone wants to run an ultra marathon. And so the goal is like, if you have a fitness goal, we're going to have a training protocol for it. So for a long time, we were inspiring people to do something and then be like, good luck. And so now it's like, we kind of hand it off to each section. So it's like, inspire people to do it. We're pretty good at that. I think that's probably one of the things we're best at, is inspiring people to take action and go do something. Training them to equip them with the actual protocols on how to do it, fueling them now, whether it's, making sure they're recovering. We have an energy product that's going to help people perform better. Or just like apparel and like wearing something cool, like the people that.
Well, I think I would encourage everybody to go get a t-shirt or in a hat, because like my son wore the hat this weekend. It was awesome. And then I love this shirt. I love it. It anchors you. It makes you feel like great. It sends a message to the world what you're about. And I love that.
Even when I have to dress up like for talks or something like that, I'll wear my Impossible shirt underneath. It feels like I'm a superhero with like my outfit underneath it. So it's like you said, it's anchoring. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Anchoring is a great way. Yeah, I love it. So now let's talk about the lawsuit. Now, so if everybody goes to like impossiblehq.com, now one thing I'll tell everybody about, because this grabbed my attention for a couple of reasons, and I wanted to talk to you about it because I had a similar experience in a previous business with a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yep.
And I realized my experience was slightly different, but so I have a soft spot for you in it, because it's like, you start realizing how rigged the system is in some ways.
Yep.
And how these big billion-dollar companies think they have the power, and in a lot of ways do have the power, and you're fighting it. And so I love it. My understanding is like Impossible Foods, which was just created a few years ago or something like that, is trying to sue you for infringement on copyright when you've been around since 2010, and you have trademarks that go back. I mean, give us the story and the lowdown, because you do go through this. And actually, what's really interesting is what's the dude's name from the plant-based guy who
Rich Roll did a video on this.
Rich Roll did a video on this. Now, here's what's really important about this. This is very important about Rich Roll. Rich Roll has a really good podcast as well. Rich is a ultra endurance dude that's pretty cool, has great story himself. You guys should all check it out. But Rich is a massively promoter of the plant-based lifestyle. And so Impossible Foods, you know, is kind of one of the champions. I'm saying that kind of air quotes, because Rich actually does a great job of kind of breaking down like the championing, like save the world and getting all these people to back you. But then your behavior is, hey, we're going to go crush these little guys, quote unquote. You're the little guy in this story, the David and Goliath example of, hey, we have no legal precedent to actually sue this guy. We don't. We're in the wrong, but because we're a multi-billion-dollar company, we're just going to go do it anyway, right? So that's kind of, and Rich does a great job of breaking that down. And I know I'm not putting words in your mouth. I kind of want to set the context a little bit, and then let you kind of take it away and share your experience, your side of the story, and what's going on.
Yeah. So the interesting thing too on Rich's perspective was, you know, he was one of the first guys that ever inspired me to even think about ultra running, because he was one of the books. It was him, Goggins, you know, early on, and Dean Karnazes, that were like the three ultra marathon guys back in the day. They were like that. So it was kind of cool to see that happen. He also used to be a lawyer. So like, he's like,
oh, is that right? Oh, yeah. He's like your classic example of somebody who used to be an attorney and then shifted his life. And I'll let him tell his story, not me, but he's got like a, you know, outcome from the ashes type story, and he's got a great perspective on things. So,
you know, so he, so basically, we're being sued by Impossible Foods. I got to be careful about like how much I can talk about the lawsuit and, you know, all the details of it. But
yeah,
the broad strokes are they're seeking to cancel a couple different of our trademarks. We have a suite of 19 registered trademarks with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. We've been around since 2010. And they, I think, I don't know their data first use, but it's something like 4 or 5 years later. Check the records on that. But basically, yeah, they're seeking to cancel our trademarks. And then they have a bunch of other requests in their lawsuit, making us pay for legal fees and all this other stuff. And it's a classic case of they're trying to utilize the court in order to be like, you know, bully other people around. And so the court case actually got thrown out. It got thrown out because they're suing us in California. It got thrown out of California because we're not based in California. But they're despite, you know, Rich Roll's, you know, post on it, and like, you know, the feedback they've gotten from their own community, they've decided to appeal that decision. So you know, I don't know how much I could talk about the details of it. I could talk about one of the things that is fun and interesting is I could talk a lot about entrepreneurs who have been sued and like how to manage it, because you can drown in it really quickly if you're not smart. And it's funny because all the mental toughness stuff that I've had to figure out in like race, the racing world, has been really, really useful on like applying that to the business world in ways that like you don't think, like, yeah, you don't typically think you're like, hey, I'm just going to randomly get sued by a $10 billion company for to cancel stuff that we've had registered for years. So so that's been really useful, and that's one of the things that I'm really excited to share, because it's always tricky to talk about litigation while it's happening. But one of the things I can share is like just the things that I've learned over the years about managing lawsuits, dealing with trademarks, why it's important for people to have a trademark early on, even if you're a small growing company. We'd be in a much worse situation if we didn't have those trademarks, but we do. And so it just makes their claims tougher for them to prove out. So
let's
really useful for us.
Yeah. So how about let's front porch that. Let's back porch that for when you can talk about this, because I think it'll be interesting to go deeper into it specifically, and I'd like to ask. So one of my companies was sued by Salesforce due to breach of contract, because I had an employee sign a 5-year, $1.2 million contract with them, that within the month of signing it, I fired him. I reviewed it all, went to the sales rep, and I was like, I do not need 90% of what he just signed me up for. Yeah. Like this, I don't need it. And then we spent the next 6 months. They were pretty much like, you're kind of effed. Like you There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm always someone who's like, well, okay, so how do I make lemonade out of lemons? So I spent the next 6 months grinding away, trying to patchwork their software into what we did on a funnel side.
Okay.
And it's like trying to take a minivan and put it in a race car. Like it just was like two different use cases. And it was like, I lost, my conversion rates dropped, everything about my company, like everything dropped, my sales dropped. And so we had to finally just stop paying, because it was the most ridiculous fees for ruining my company. And it's not Salesforce's fault that my conversion rates went down.
Yeah.
But the use of it it's not the right use for it.
Yeah.
So, but here's what became interesting, Joel. I was like, there was no way to cancel. Like, there was no way to do a 1 year.
There's no buyout fee or anything like that?
No. We're going for the 1.2 million you owe us, and we're going to sue you till we get it. And if you try to go file bankruptcy, we're going to go after everything. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. So we ended up settling in California in their backyard, because we had to do a what's that called before you go to court?
Mediation, arbitration.
Yeah, mediation. You had to go to mediation, and pretty much my attorneys were like, "Here's how it works. In San Francisco, you're going to have an all liberal jury. It's going to cost you another $250,000 just to defend yourself, and they're super big in San Francisco, and so we can do it, but you're probably going to lose. And it doesn't matter if you're right. It doesn't matter if they're being non like common sense here.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that took one of my businesses completely down. I mean, I paid it and grinded through it. And so, like, it would be really interesting to talk to you about, like, the mental health around that. So I could see when guys like go through stuff like that you're going through, that's why I reached out to you immediately. Because first of all, I think it's really interesting to see, like, when you have friends that are around you who disappear when shit goes bad. That's number one. It's very interesting. Like, oh, well, yeah, it is what it is. They're like the big thing. Rather than supporting you, especially if you have friends that could support you that aren't. Number one. And number two is, like, you feel like you're on an island and you're all by yourself. And so anyhow, so that's why I want to talk to you briefly about it. But let's come back on after you win and you go through it. And it's I'm totally in your corner on this one, man. And just so everybody knows, that's crazy. Like, in this, by the way, this is happening, just so everybody knows. Like, I was so close to starting up my own partnering with a lawyer after this all happened. And I still might do it, because I think there's a business model here. It's like, hey, like when people are typing in certain software keywords, hey, before you sign the contract, before anyone on your team signs a contract, we will review this for free for you to make sure that, because the where they win is in their contract and their law, like where if you and I go to, like, say and I think this is a mistake. This is where I had to take a lot of responsibility personally and intentionally. Is like, when you're growing really, really fast, my company was growing so fast, is that abdicating responsibilities. This is one of my biggest, I was so busy trying to grow the company that I wasn't dotting the I's, crossing the T's of what an important team member was doing.
Yep.
And so signing up for something like a small, like, software, which is what you do a lot of in internet marketing, is a totally different ballgame than signing a contract with $1 billion company.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just stop paying your bill. You can't cancel. Hey, you want to cancel? No, you can't. we signed this deal with you. So that was one SOP I would have put in. I'll tell everybody this, that I would have put in my, like, company is, anytime we sign legal documents, our own internal lawyer, it's worth the $500. It's worth $500, $250. I mean, to have them review it and to just make sure It doesn't matter how nice your sales rep is. It doesn't matter how nice the manager is. It doesn't matter anything. Have your attorney, whose job is to protect you, review everything. Now, your situation is different, but I just wanted to share that with everybody because
I think that's super important though. Like you know, I think you've got probably a lot of people who are like bootstrapping their businesses listen to you. It's, probably a lot of people like, there's a mentality that's like, hey man, like I'll just do it myself. I'm going to save the money, whatever. And this is what I tell people with trademarks, it's not like people are like, oh, I'll worry about that later. What it's like, it's $1,000, like it's $300 filing fee. It's $1,000 if a lawyer does it for you. But, I've dealt with trademarks a lot over the last few years. Part of the reason, I've made missteps in the past, and we had to fix them, and like, that's why we've registered a whole bunch of things that we have, because it's not that much money up front. But if you skimp on the $250 that for your lawyer to read it over, or the $1,000 to file the mark, like if you get like if we would have gotten sued and we didn't have the trademarks, then we have to start proving all sorts.
Yeah, you're gonna lose. Your case is like 1/10 as strong as it is right now.
Yeah. So, but when you have the marks, you just point to the mark and you're like, hey, that's
yeah.
That's why they have to. That's why they're trying to cancel it. So
the other side is too is like and this is like another part of, I think, just entrepreneurial life. Like we are ready, fire, aim guys in most cases. Like ready, fire it, see how things go, and then we dial it in later. And that's okay. You have to do that in life. Like you have to test things fast. Like you got to try stuff, and most of it's not going to work. But the aim part and coming back and having someone help clean up things for you. Like if you got the shirt made and you're like, man, I really like this. Okay, cool. Do you want to make a business out of it? Yes. Get the trademark, right? You want to do that, all right, moving on. So you're kicking butt with this. So then you went, your swag was amazing. And then now you're actually going into nutraceuticals, which is a place that I've lived like in for like 13, 14, 15 years in the supplement space. And I love it. I love the branding you have. And so why did you pick why did you build the formulations that you did? And tell me the benefits of it.
Yeah. So the goal with the, we launched supplements actually a while back, and I made a couple missteps that I've seen other people make. And you've seen a lot of like, high profile athletes or whatever, they launch like a supplement brand. And the supplement brand is in some ways, I'd actually be curious on your take, but a lot of them to basically just white label like a whole series of different products. So they'll take like an omega, they'll take a like a greens product, or maybe a whey product, and they just like white label everything. And then they have their brand on it, and it works, and like it can do something. But what I always found with that is I actually really like the person, and the brand never felt like it matched the person. Like I was like, I like you, and I would actually just buy it because you're kind of a cool person. And then the brand kind of felt empty because it didn't have any positioning in the marketplace. Like if it was just like, if they were really good at Amazon sales or something like that, then maybe like I could understand it. But it's just kind of like, hey, we have a bunch of different things, and didn't have their flag planted in any one area.
Yeah. And
so what I wanted to do with these formulas is create products that help enhance peak states for people. So our tagline is push your limits, and we want to be able to help people do that in a couple different ways. And so we're going to be launching 3 different formulas. The first one is a sleep formula. The next one's going to be an energy formula. And the third one's going to be a focus formula. And so the point of the sleep one is that, like, personally, I've always struggled with sleep as an entrepreneur. Like, I always like want to go.
Yeah.
And turning it off for me is really a hard problem. And a lot of the stuff that are in most sleep supplements, even like really basic things like melatonin, they're not as great for you as you think they are. Like a lot of people take like 5 milligrams of melatonin. That's like at least 10 times more than your body produces on a nightly basis. And they're just like superdosing, some of these elements. And so what's funny was I've experimented with a lot of this stuff, and I just kind of had bad personal experiences. I've always taken magnesium as an athlete. Yeah. And that was always helpful for like rest and recovery, but it was never helpful for me falling asleep. And so I just kind of dug into the research, did a lot of primary research on my own. Like examine.com is a really good resource for this if you have other people that are like looking this stuff up. But basically, I came down to two things that I really wanted in a formula, and that was magnesium and L-theanine. And the magnesium is helpful for the deep sleep, and L-theanine is kind of helpful for like turning the lights off at night, like just like kind of dimming things down, kind of calming you out. And what's funny, as I was coming up with this formula and we were like perfecting it and messing around with flavors like last summer, Andrew Huberman, if you know Andrew Huberman, he's got like a big podcast. He does like these like 3-hour long episodes on like focus, rest, recovery, building muscle, whatever. Great podcast, super awesome dude. What's funny is I was handing this out and I was like explaining my rationality for this to like a couple of different people that were like early testing it, and they're like, "Have you heard of Huberman?" I'm like, "I don't know," like, and they're like, "This sounds like a lot like what he's talking about." And so I was looking up what he was doing, and it was funny to see like all the things that I was saying about like melatonin and other stuff that people put in, like GABA, like valerian root, all these other things that I intentionally pulled out of like a supplement, is like stuff that he was doing his own rants on.
Oh, really? No
yeah,
kidding.
and then his like he's got a recommended sleep cocktail that he's been promoting lately. Like it's not through anybody. It's just like, hey, if you want to optimize your sleep, this is what you should do. And it's basically magnesium, L-theanine, and then this other compound called apigenin. And apigenin we left out specifically because there are some it can have some hormone interactions, and it just makes people a little bit like iffy on it. So if you're going to do that, like dose it separately. But it was funny just being like, he's like, you should take something like 300 or 400 milligrams of magnesium, about like 100 to 200 milligrams of L-theanine, and that's basically what's in the formula. It's 350 milligrams of magnesium and 150 milligrams of L-theanine. And I've been just tracking stuff with my Whoop. I've seen like my Whoop scores go off the charts when I'm taking it. I've had really good results on people so far. And so the goal with all these products is, create clean, custom formulations that help people like enhance their peak state. So like the sleep one, recover, like we're doing a little tagline on it as like, sleep hard, recover harder. Like, it's easier for me if
I like that. Actually, that resonated with me when I looked at that. I was like, that's great. Sleep hard, recover harder. Yeah, that's great.
Like
I was trying to tell my wife that too. I was like, it's coming. We're going to recover harder. And she was like, stop being a pervert. And I was like, okay, sorry, honey. I was like, it's my job. We're married for 17 years. I can be a pervert. It's part of my, with you, I can, anyhow. Sorry for all my listeners who are,
No, you're good. But yeah, so the sleep one, it's easier for me to make sleep a goal. Like it was helpful to me to make like, you're doing this not because you're being unproductive, but because you're going to be doing other hard stuff and you need to make sure you're recuperated for that. And so that was super helpful. We're really excited about that. We've got other flavors in the works, but like really, really going to promote this. And then, we're building out other experiences for people who are like, we're going to help fix your sleep. If you're like, high energy person, you push your limits all the time, you're training really hard. Like here's the stuff that's going to like fix your sleep, fix your recovery, and it's going to lead into other stuff. And then the next thing that we're going to be launching is going to be an energy supplement. And I think this is going to be like basically like a healthy energy drink and like a stick pack. And the goal with that is to have people like have it with them. So if you're going to go do Hell on the Hill, if you're going to go run up a mountain, if you're going to go do an ultra marathon, if you're going to go skydive, if you're going to do whatever, like you can have this with you. You can literally like go do something impossible, like rip, like, where the line is with impossible, it's like you rip like open impossible. It's like go do something impossible, dunk it, shake it up, and then go do your thing. And so I love creating products, and I love creating products that people both, wear and use, but then also have with them on a regular basis. And so if we can provide that while also making them healthy for people, creating, optimal states, that's what I want to do.
I love it. So to answer your question on the private label stuff versus like formula, do you want me to answer that question or
go
my perspective on that? So it's really interesting. So for everyone who's listening, because I have a lot of entrepreneurs in the health space who actually listen to the podcast and who will be listening to this, is like the distinction between, hey, just go private label. First of all, there are good private label products out there, so I'm not going to crap on them. There's a lot of bad private label products out there that don't have the dosage levels that are required to the claims, you know?
Yep.
And that's a big thing. Like if you're going to say turmeric helps, but you're selling a dosage level and a quality level that's not meeting the research studies, then your claim is a lie. I mean, you're just kind of saying, hey, you're gonna have, because what we found with Marine D3. So when I created Marine D3, I hired a doctor and I had a research scientist that helped us get the work with our formulators. So we went formulations. The reason we went, this is a big difference. The reason we did that is because our goal at the time, Joel, this goes back 15 years ago, was maybe 13, was we were going to do direct mail. And direct mail requires you, since you are mailing buyers, you're direct mailing to buyers. Okay. So let me ask a question. If you're going to sell your sleep supplement to someone who just purchased Athletic Greens and you're just saying, hey, buy L-theanine because it's good for your brain. Mm-hmm. Somebody who purchased Athletic Greens, and I'll talk about Chris Ashenden in a second, were probably purchased Athletic Greens because they were referred by somebody like on a podcast, like the Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss or something like that. Or like I just popped up Huberman's podcast and I see Athletic Greens AG1, which is their new branding. I do like it a lot. Has been redesigned 52 times, has 24 super supplements that you should have on your daily basis to get all your natural immunity, blah, blah, blah. And you never have to worry about your greens again, especially if you hate greens. Like it tastes great, whatever. So I've known Chris Ashenden since he started that company. And the thing that Chris was just insanely, to give him a lot of credit, he was so insanely committed to developing something that was freaking amazing for his audience. And he was not in a hurry to become like wealthy from just scaling the business. Yep. He wanted repeat purchasers. Right? And so the level of sophistication, this is where like direct mail buyers, level of sophistication means they read like an 8 to 16 page sales letter, usually through direct mail. And you had to have a better mechanism or something that would be contributory to the mechanism of why this is uniquely different, because you were selling to people that were already buyers. So they already had a level of IQ about, say, the nutrients they're taking that was higher than a non-buyer. Yep. And so where private label really became super, super big, and I guess Amway and some of those companies are like the biggest supplier or sellers of private label nutrients, like a lot of multi-level marketing companies. But with the way a lot of supplement business guys who were just like scaling online, they were offer-driven sales letters, very like, hey, we're going to cure your nerve pain with this new discovered nutrient. Yep. And the level of sophistication of that buyer is less. They're not as educated on stuff. They got a problem, they're trying to solve their problem. So it's very problem focused. So when you talk about like when you meet like some really good entrepreneurs in health where their personality is separate than their brand, it's usually because they become really, really good direct response marketers and they hide behind their sales copy. And whether it's fake doctors, real doctors, but it's not really necessarily an efficacy like we're trying to inspire the world through a unique product blend like you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. Like my friends over at Protect are trying to do, like Chris Ashenden was trying to do. Mm-hmm. Like when Aubrey Marcus created On It, and like they were trying to create the best what's the nootropic that they possibly could. Yep. And then Joe Rogan frickin' was bragging about it at every podcast. I mean, those things have just luck, timing, quality hit. And so I like your approach is like you're staying true to your Impossible brand. You're focused on quality. And like, when I start trying your sleep thing, and if I feel a significant difference, well, guess what? Every night for the rest of my life that I can remember, I'm taking the sleep thing. Put me on subscribe and save,
Well, the
and
great thing about
that
sleep
should be the
is
mission. That should be the mission. 10 years down the road, you're bridging that chasm because you're doing what you love. You're now impacting people who you love because they're part of your tribe. And I hate using that word tribe because it's just overused. But you know what I mean? But like they're people that want to be a part of the mission of, train hard, recover harder, get back up, have an amazing day,
The great part about sleep is everybody does it every night. So like if you build a product that works and helps people like feel a real difference on it, once you sleep really well, it's hard to go back to like not sleeping so well. It's like you feel a difference. And sometimes like we see this with like health and nutrition. A lot of people don't know how good they can feel because they're just used to operating on like really bad metrics. They're used to feeling bad all the time. And so once you fix that, you make them feel good. They're like, whoa, I didn't know I could be doing this all the time. And then you kind of build those habits in. And so one of the things, we did a mix. We did like a drink mix versus like a capsule or like a pill or anything like that. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that was because it's part of like the nightly routine. Like it's like a habit cue that we want to put people into.
Like a shot? Is it a shot or is
it's more of a powder, but it's basically like I take it like a tea, like a nighttime tea.
Yeah.
So, one of the things we're going to be rolling out is like a welcome kit with like a mug and like a stir and all this other stuff. But the idea is like you sit down, you take it, and it's just part of something that you do every single night.
Dude, you know what you should do? Like, give me not like here's me telling you what you should do, right? But as a free gift for people that like buy like the monthly subscribe and save, you should find out like do an impossible like I put a t-shirt over my eyes every night, right? But it'd be fun. Even if I don't even use your impossible like sleep mask, having it on my pillow, oh man, what a good anchor.
So what I'm going to do is like a welcome pack for people. So it's going to have like, here's the things that fix your sleep. Like the sleep formula is like kind of the core piece, but here's other things that help. Like we have partnerships with a couple other companies that do some similar stuff. I want to do something with like a mug and a sleep mask. So we'll.
I love it.
Just
you're on that.
Give me a month or two, and I'll.
Like I need a sleep mask. I need my dogs to shut up in the middle of the night. I love my dogs, but there's like
it's also incentivizing that subscription behavior too.
Well, that's what I want. That's what I'm talking about. The premiums always by everyone who's listening. Like premium sell subscriptions. Last thing I want to talk about. Then we gotta wrap this up. We'll do a part two. Well, really quick, while I'm thinking about this, what is in your focus? The brain stuff. So when my daughter was going through, or whatever we're always trying to optimize her and trying to have it come back. Is like we did a ion panel test, which allows you to test all your amino acids.
Okay.
And I'm forgetting the guy's name that we did it through. Her every single cell, every single amino acid was depleted for her. Like when she went through because of COVID and Lyme and whatever. It was quite a journey. It is still quite a journey because the cells were not absorbing and turning the nutrition that we were force feeding into her body into actually receiving it. The receptor cells were not properly working. Because they were under so much attack by the cytokine storm. For everybody who's listening, if you've never listened to me before, my daughter is still dealing with, but we've found some solutions and we're on the road to recovery. But we're still 40. She's not like my wife and I were going to bed. We're arguing about how far she's back, and my wife was like, "Well, between 50 and 60% on her best days," and I was like, "Well, I think it's more like 80." But I'm just naturally an optimist of it being better than it is to where she used to be. But one of the things that was really interesting for me to learn there was when we studied her amino acids in the brain, and the doctor walked us through what each amino acid does. I was like, that makes sense. This is like all started, like the light bulb started going off. Like, Oh, so okay, so like my happiness, my focus,
Mm,
my alertness, my attention, there's precursors and there's
yeah.
different building blocks that help fuel the brain.
Yep.
And my memory, my short-term memory, like all those things. So when when you brought up like the brain, like what are you guys using, or is it even out yet, or do you have your formulation completely done yet for the
So the
focus?
focus supplement is what you're talking about, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is still like that's one of the things that I found with mixes is you have so many more issues than you would if I just like dumped it into a capsule, because you have to deal with like flavoring and all this other, and
Yeah.
dissolvability and all this stuff. So focus is kind of set for like later this year. Energy is the one that I'm gonna like it's pretty close. We're might be launching in like as soon. I just need to run taste tests through people basically.
Yeah,
So the
taste tests
focus
are
one,
hard. Just so everyone knows that. That's what's hard about the powders, man. Is you got to go back and forth so many times to get the taste right.
yeah. And then sometimes you're like, this is good, and then you like wake up the next day and you're like, is it? And then you're like, it is, and then it's confusing. So the focus one, we basically have a couple different formulas we're going to be working off of. Um, the tough part on some of this stuff is that the more things, I'll give you an example from the energy one, because that's like literally what I'm in the works on right now. Is a lot of the things that promote like performance and energy are super bitter ingredients, right? So like the things that are in Red Bull are helpful because like taurine's actually like a really good performance drug. Like it's a great compound, but it's super bitter. And so you're like, oh my gosh, Red Bull has like 30 grams of sugar in it. And you're like, I actually understand why, because they have to cover up all these bitter flavors that come up. And so what we're trying to do is basically make a zero sugar, like no junk, like no BS, healthy version of Red Bull. It's like keep the things that keep performance and like, drive performance, get rid of all the stuff that like having a ton of sugar in your diet is not going to be really helpful if you're not doing it strategically.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And so pulling that out. And so that's been one of the things where you're like, it's actually, I started on the energy formulation first, and we got the sleep one launched before the energy one did, because the sleep one was just like simpler. Like if you have two ingredients, there's a lot less variables to deal with. The flavor,
which actually just gave you, this is also why people do private labels, because it just costs more and takes work. Good for you.
But the flavorings that we're already working on new flavor ideations for the sleep stuff, and I feel really good about them. And with the energy formula where it stands right now, like we've got one flavor that I think is awesome. The other one is like kind of in this weird spot where I'm like, is this awesome? I think it's awesome, but then you're like second guessing yourself. And this is coming back to the like ready, fire, aim thing. This is a weird thing to just move fast on. Like my default is move fast on stuff and just like break things. But with taste is a very like visceral reaction. And so you don't get a lot of second or third chances on when people taste your product.
You're totally right. You're totally right.
So we want to make sure we have a really good first experience. I think we do that with the sleep. I think it's really solid. I think 66% of the energy flavors that we've tried are pretty good. And then there's just like this little other piece that we're like, what is that? How do you fix that?
Yeah.
So, but it's a fun problem to solve.
Breaking things is important on certain levels, but then there's other things that just require you to do it right. So keep doing it right. Well, hey man, so let's just review how people can reach out to you, where they could buy, and anything else you want to promote, man. You got 1 minute to pitch yourself away.
Our performance gear and custom formulations at impossible.co. Check that out. That's all of our e-commerce stuff. If you want to train, get stronger, get faster, gain strength, lose fat, check out impossiblefitness.com. That's got a ton of free training programs and our premium app. And then if you want to see everything that's going on the site, inspiration, motivation, stuff that's happening behind the scenes with me, impossiblehq.com. And then I'm just at Joel Runyon on pretty much any social media. So you can.
Are you planning on doing another like longest day type thing? Like or something?
I was thinking about longest day. I've got people emailing me about it. The problem is longest day sucked. Like it was hard. Like it was like not fun. Like it was tough. So and I did it all alone. And so longest night I did with a bunch of people. Longest day was tough. So we
Dude,
talked about
there really needs to be, I mean, honestly, like if you're gonna do it again, that or some kind of I was very close to sort of thinking I was gonna do it with you. But the idea of being up at 6:30 or 5:30 a.m., hit the track, and then I'm running in circles for the next 14 hours. That needs to be tent, food trucks,
yeah.
music, hundreds of people that I could change conversations with, so
I might put out the bat signal for it. I know people are interested in it. So like there's a potential we do a small version of it. And then as it grows, like people are interested in more. We launched it during COVID. So that was why it was so dispersed. It was just like do something anyways. Like you can go to the track and run around.
Yeah, totally. I love it.
Oh.
I love it. But I think that one thing to encourage people on too is like, I think there's things like if you haven't done, like I know Jesse has something coming up in May with the run on the hell on
the driveway. The hell.
Yeah, but I don't even know the details on that because I looked at it and I was like, wow. I told my wife like, well, we can go camping and some adventure, but
I think you're running up his front. I think you're running up the driveway at his house.
Yeah, but I thought it was in Georgia.
Oh,
I thought I was on his. But he's got like this property that there's probably is a driveway out there, and I'd have to ask him, and then because that would be insane. But there's something. So like one of these things I'm now doing with Keegan, who's my little nugget that we're just getting back in shape, is like we were working out together, and we had to go pick up the kids at school. So we worked out from like 2 to 3, and then pick up the kids at school at 3. And I went into one of the I took the 30-pound med ball.
Yep.
Like the slam ball. And I was like, hey, here, this is what we're going to do. When we walk a few blocks, we're going to carry it.
Yep.
Like, and you got to learn how to carry it. And like, I told her about an experience I had with Kokoro is like, we had to run with a rock, literally a rock. And it was symbolic for your why. And the only thing you knew was you got to get to point B in as fast as you possibly can. And at this point, like you start running with the rock, you're like, oh, it doesn't hurt. Oh my God, it's freaking killing me. You put it on the back and you're like, and you keep switching it. And so we've been kind of messing around with that last couple of days. And it's like, there's a lot of those mental toughness things like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to do a volleyball camp or you come train with Ed, we come do our 90-minute thing. And then the parents all know there's going to be a mental toughness challenge for an hour. And all it is 3 of us, like you're going to be in groups of 3 and you all got one's a 30-pound ball, one's a 10 ball, like 10, maybe 15. I don't know. We have to challenge it. And all we're going to do is walk. We're going to walk 3 miles together. And the only rule is the balls can't touch the ground with your team and you got to work together. And so one person rests while the other people do it. And, it's just as stupid as that sounds, like there's something magical about going into like where like the uncomfortableness switches to impossible bearing. I can't hold this anymore to like surrender. Yeah. And it's like, once you get into that surrender, there's just a space that you just can't explain. You just got to get there, If
you want a good workout, our gym's been programming. We did something like 15 burpees, and then a 400-meter run carrying a 45-pound plate. So like, it's kind of heavy. It's a little bit heavy. It's
400 meters?
400 meters. But you do it like, but you do it like 3 or 4 times, and you do it 4 times.
Yeah, that's not easy.
No. And so the 45-pound plate is like, it's not that heavy, but it's awkward. And there's no good way to hold a 45-pound plate.
Right here. Yeah, I love it. Okay, cool.
So
I'll go do that. When I was training for Kokoro, I did a lot of things like where I'd put like 135 on my back and like walk a block. And the goal was to not drop it. And you'd see how far you have to go. And then you drop it and then you have to add like 10 burpees in there. And then that's where the mental suck is like, wait a second, if I could get there, I don't have to do the burpees. But then when you drop it, you're like, okay, if I hurry on the burpees, I'm now back on the bar. Yeah. Like that's awesome. Yeah. I'll tell you what challenge I'm having. I'm trying to figure it out is like, I got to do more things like that where I don't even like warm up much and just do it because I'm bumping into the whole like spending time with Mike training for golf
Yeah.
It's just so much time.
Yeah.
Where I gotta like get back to my 30-minute hard hitting, intense like grinds.
I take photos of most of the workouts that we do. We haven't done a couple. We're working up to 1 rep maxes right now, so we haven't done work caps in a while. I'm gonna start screenshotting these things and send them to you, because especially the spicy ones, because these weighted runs where you're like, you don't think it's that much, and it's not that far you're really running, but it's like heavy. Like the time under weight is, we talked about this before.
Well, no, this is good actually. We'll keep rolling here because this is something I talked about Keegan a little bit, because let me back up. So with Keegan, we were doing like a little bit of trying to get her back working out more consistently of, hey, we're doing 20 rope slam like things on those long ropes, and then I'll go, and then we're gonna do some lunges with weight, and then we're gonna do just body squats with a little bit of weight, like 20 pounds, 10 pounds, and then do some push presses. Then we run like 300 meters, and then we come back. I did 2 rounds of that with her, and I noticed her heart rate and breathing was too high. And so I changed the workout. And then, so in the middle of, what was my point with that? Oh, so where I was going with that was, after we got done with the workout, doing the 30 pound thing, we walked, and I was like, Keegs, what most people don't realize is that walking with weight, time under tension, is one of the fastest ways. And it might be one of our backdoor secrets with her. And even my daughter Reese is getting ready to go to Outward Bound, is like, time under tension is the fastest way to get your body and your endurance prepared to do really hard things. Go ahead and tell me your side of that.
No, I'm looking for a book. I've got it right here. Have you heard of Killian Jornet?
No.
All right. So this book is called Training for the Uphill Athlete.
Oh, geez.
And this is all about, like, Killian Jornet is like the best ultra mountain runner in the world. He's kind of a freak person. Like, his parents were born in the Alps, and he's born in the Alps. So his lungs have, he's basically bred for this.
Yeah.
But he's also an amazing athlete. And this is one of the things that I screwed up with my ultra running. When I was running a lot, I was just running a lot. And I was always running in like zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, like high effort paces. And I was just demolishing my body and breaking myself down. And one of the things he talks about in this is like, okay, you're an awesome mountain athlete. You have to be just like crushing mountains all the time. And what he talks about is more than half of his training is all zone 2 training. And zone 2 training, if you don't know what it is, it's basically 115 to like 135 beats per minute in your heart rate, depending on where you're at from an age scale. And that's equivalent to like you have to be pushing kind of hard on like a cycle, like on a spin bike. But if you're walking, like I tried to do this the other day, just like walking. And if I was running, I'd be in like zone 3, zone 4, like even on a slow jog on like a 10-minute pace. And so I had to drop down to like a 14-minute mile pace to get to zone 2. But
really, okay,
if you weight yourself, like exactly what you're talking about, I don't know if you have a heart rate monitor, but throw a heart rate monitor on her and see where she's at. And if you throw the weight and you're just walking, you're probably at like 120 right away. So you're in zone 2 and you could do 30 minutes of it, and it's low impact. You're not beating up your joints, and you're getting the cardiovascular benefits of it. And then you're also like burning fat while you're doing it. So you're improving your body composition. So,
well, is there any heart rate monitor that you recommend?
So I'm using a Whoop right now. I don't love the subscription aspect to it. I would just get I have an old Garmin 920 XT that I use for like ultra endurance stuff, but their tech has improved so much better now that it's like their Phoenix 7, I think, has a built-in heart rate monitor on it, and it's a dope looking watch. It's like kind of expensive, but that's probably what I'm going to get next. Just because I could wear it it's a Garmin. And then it just syncs with all your other Garmin races.
Does that test heart rate variability as well? It's got it, right?
I would think it does. But I haven't used it yet. So
here's why I'm asking this, dude. Because I think like when you eat foods that are like so if I eat gluten or dairy, I stay away from dairy as much as possible. Full sin. If there's good pizza in front of me, you might as well just get out of my way. I will have that pizza. But I don't know if it's Ben Greenfield talking about, like, your heart rate variability watch will tell you where you have food sensitivities because your heart rate will change based on the certain foods. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant.
Well, so the Whoop will give you they do a lot of like custom stuff, and I don't love anytime they overlay their custom info on it. But the things I care about are heart rate, sleep, rough sleep data, and then HRV, heart rate variability. And one of the cool things, and tying this back into the sleep thing, is they'll give you a recovery score based on your HRV the next day, and your HRV can be dramatically swung by a few things. Like alcohol, I see like my HRV will drop off the cliff, just complete trash the next day. Even if I have like one drink, I didn't realize it was so drastic until I started monitoring it. But then with our sleep supplement too, like that's where I've seen the scores pop, where days that like I don't take it, I'll have like a middling, they'll give me like a 50-60% score. And days where I do take it, the magnesium specifically, my HRV like is like 80-95%, the recovery score is. And so that's kind of, those are the metrics that I'm looking at. I've changed my training over the last few years. I'm probably a little bit smarter, and I'm training just as hard, but I'm not beating myself down as much. And I think I'm in better shape now than I've probably been in a long time.
Yeah, everyone's checking out. You had a great post, and we'll cover that. I mean, you're doing the zone 2, you're kicking some ass and shredded. Well, next time I have you on, we got to talk about stand-up comedy.
Okay.
You'll have your supplements out. Hopefully the lawsuit, best wishes with that. Hopefully that's resolved.
Yep.
So we can move forward. I'm going to ask you to stay on for 1 second because we got to talk about leads for a second. And then, well, hey man, I'm proud of you. Like you're doing some just great stuff. It's awesome. From the night we spent together in the same bedroom, that sounds so weird, with 8 other people, and you're just killing it. So I expect a lot of great things just keep coming your way, and we got to pick up some more swag, and so just keep getting after it, brother. Okay?
Yeah, I appreciate the support, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, it's Ed again. Hey, one last thing before you leave. First, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to the show. If you love this show or this episode and know someone who can benefit, please copy it and share it with them. Also, if you can do me a favor and leave a quick review wherever you listen to these podcasts the most, whether it's Apple, Spotify, etc., it really will help us get the message out to more people. That's it. Thanks again, and make it a great day.